Hi everyone, how are you doing today? I have just finished reading Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, and I wanted to share with you my thoughts on this book, having just finished it this past weekend. This book is sort of continuing with Ishiguro's recent themes of science fiction and dystopia, and it's about a robot, or an artificial friend, so-called, named Clara, who she's actually narrating this book, but she lives in this store and is waiting for somebody to adopt her. So the book follows first her experiences watching the world from the window of the store, and then subsequently getting adopted by this girl named Josie and going to live with Josie and the experiences she has there. I had very high hopes for this novel. I think I mentioned it briefly in my last video on Ishiguro. Also mentioned in that video how his books can be hit or miss for me. This book, honestly, I absolutely loved the concept going into it. I think that, especially now where these kinds of situations, these robots are very much within the realm of possibility, and we've seen early prototypes of these things already. It's a very relevant topic, and it inspires you with ideas of how the future could be, for better or worse. And I think deep down, each of us would love to have a robot friend. I did kind of a blog post on that yesterday, so you can check that out if you're interested. But, I think the concept of having someone who's always there for you and supports you 100% is naturally a pretty attractive thing to have, and this book kind of starts with that premise, but all told from the robot's perspective. I'll start with this quote here from the manager of the store. "Clara has so many unique qualities, we could be here all morning. But if I had to emphasize just one, well, it would have to be her appetite for observing and learning. Her ability to absorb and blend everything she sees around her is quite amazing. As a result, she now has the most sophisticated understanding of any AF, artificial friend, in this store. B3s not accepted." So Clara is not the latest model of artificial friend, but she is the smartest of them yet, and so that's one of the reasons she gets adopted by this family. The book is divided into 6 parts, so you can think of them as very long chapters. I found the first 2/3 of the novel to just fly by. As Clara becomes part of this new family and acclimated to life in the outside world in this home, we get to see a lot of different themes that Ishiguro is playing with. So first off is the relationship between an artificial friend and her child that she's supposed to be friend to. And this can be a positive thing, it can be negative. We see moments of tension between Clara and Josie, and while Josie most of the time treats Clara as any other friend, she also has the ability to mistreat her as well without there being any repercussions from Clara, because Clara has been conditioned to understand her whole purpose in life is to essentially serve Josie. So Clara doesn't have any feelings of resentment or being mistreated. She just knows when Josie treats her differently that something is not quite right there. So yeah, that's one of the themes of this book. How are artificial beings, especially in humanoid form, how are they treated, and how does that affect other people's relationships as well? Because Clara, as part of the family, is treated almost like, well, something between a sister and a servant. So it gets to be a little fuzzy there. And of course, Clara, being the robot in the situation, From her perspective, this is all very normal, so she doesn't really question anything, and she is trying her very best to make the family happy. There is another character in the book called Rick, and he is Josie's boyfriend, and he lives next door. So one of the subplots in this book is how Rick has led this sort of sheltered life, I would say, and he is not quite up to social par with the other children. And I'm not going to give anything away there, but that's one of the questions in this book is when you've got these different levels of intelligence, both artificial and human, how do these hierarchies play out in society? So I thought that was interesting. One thing I want to mention is, and for me this was sort of a low point of the book, Ishiguro really touches on a lot of different social conflicts related to artificial intelligence and also related to current events. He references, for example, the Fourth Industrial Revolution and robots replacing people's jobs. But I wouldn't say it is a major part of the book. It's something mentioned in passing. I would have loved to hear more about that. Likewise, with how robots are treated, he alludes to all of these negative situations, but I don't feel like any of them really get played out in full. Two other topics in this book are those of the difference between, or I should say, what makes us human, and whether robots have their own, shall we say, religious beliefs. So Clara in this book, it runs mostly on solar power, and she ends up deifying the sun, like basically worshiping the sun, because she believes life comes from the sun and that the sun can help people if you respect the sun. Now, I thought that was rather interesting as well. Again, my problem with this book is that all of these fascinating topics are only explored so far. I don't feel like any of them were extended far enough that we really got, moments of true dilemma or true, exploration. Like, I was really hoping he would dig deeper into everything I've mentioned so far, and I didn't feel like any of it was explored far enough. So yeah, the first 2/3 of the book, like I mentioned, were quite gripping, and then the last third I felt things just kind of plateaued, and the ending was honestly really disappointing. It wasn't a problematic ending, it just wasn't as exciting as I was hoping it would be. And I get that that's Ishiguro's style. He's very understated, and he is really trying to pull out psychological, emotional themes as opposed to these sweeping plot twists or anything of that nature. But I still think he had more story to tell. I still think there was way more he could have said about robots in society and how we treat each other and how we treat the robots. And again, it just felt a little underdeveloped in that sense. So all in all, I gave this book 3 stars. I think it's a solid 3. That's kind of the rating I give books to start out with, and then I kind of up it or detract from there. And I would say it's not a book I'm regretting I didn't buy. I don't think I will be buying this book. I'm glad I read it, however, and it was certainly thought-provoking. I just think that there's, like I said, so much more story to tell here. And if he ends up writing more books on this topic, maybe getting into specific issues deeply or more deeply, I would be interested in reading those. So that's my kind of lukewarm review of Clara and the Sun. Let me know if you've read it or if you plan to read it, and if you have any other books on this topic you'd recommend, I'm definitely open to reading them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.